So I really, that was 3.5 hours. So thank you so much. I mean, this is intense. And so I wanted to get the information out there. So yeah, let's open it up for a Q&A. Thank you, Starshine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, or if there is a Q&A, we all need to take a breather, maybe. Yeah, whatever you guys want. So
are you muted?
Who, me?
Oh.
No.
Oh, go ahead, Mimi. You got your hand raised.
To be told.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm reading things. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Mimi. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just
please use your hand raising. I love it, Mimi. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Like it was a long time ago, like 2 hours ago, I think, that you mentioned the little UFO club.
Oh, Vancouver. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, and you said who
Wilbert
knows
Smith.
where they are now.
Yeah, Wilbert
right?
Smith. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, I used to know. This is a weird coincidence, serendipity thing. I signed up to help elderly people at one point in my life. And I got paired up with this lady. And her name was Leah Anderson. And I didn't know anything about her. I just knew that she was partly crippled. She had MS. And I would just drive her around and we would do groceries and stuff. And one day we were talking. And she was the kind of coordinator for the UFO club. And she was a librarian from UBC.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They went on for a long time, this club. And they did all the UFO Congress things. A lot of them went to volunteer. It was a really, really happening club. And they did a lot of their meetings there at UBC and also in other places. But Leah passed away. But the thing that's really weird is that I signed up as a volunteer. And she was in Dolores Cannon's 3 Waves of Volunteers book. Her story was in there. So it's a lot of, kind of a coincidence thing. So she was a lovely, lovely lady, and she did a lot of work for like 20 years or something. She brought incredible people to Vancouver. I can't really mention them because I don't remember everything she said, but she was elderly, and they've been doing it for a very long time. Wow. I think you said the 60s, and I think that's when it was. Yeah.
Yeah, so. That's amazing. That's a really neat connection, Mimi. And like the fact that I gravitated towards that and you did, yeah, that's interesting stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Well, that's
I love that. It was very lovely. And I think the thing dissolved after she passed away, or before, about 4 years or 5 years before. Yeah. She passed away when she got really ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Very interesting. Cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Troy, go ahead, man.
Okay. So I wanted to comment on the water element.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the aliens have preferences between saltwater and freshwater, because I know there's activity around both types of water. And I just want to get your take, Jeff, at some point, if you believe there could be something like alien bases or even like villages or cities or networks of bases out of the lakes and rivers and bodies of water, the bays too, around where you were having sightings. I know that there are some alien bases I know of. At least one, I believe, maybe 2, just in the Puget Sound near Whidbey Island, that is in saltwater. And so, yeah, there are definitely alien bases underwater. Yeah. And I believe most of them are cloaked, so we won't even be able to see them.
Yeah.
But some psychics I know have been able to sense them and otherwise. So I'm going to get your take about what do you think of that, and also why you think there so much activity about aliens happens with around water.
Yeah. Sorry, was the question is like my take on the bases combined with the whole idea that they're using water? Is that what you mean?
If you think there could be bases that they've set up under some of the water
Mm,
bodies of water around your sightings, or what your beliefs are around
yeah,
why there's so much activity around bodies of water near where you had sightings.
yeah, you got it. My my take on the water part is I think I'm now leaning towards some kind of I'm pretty certain that we're looking at electromagnetic fields, paranormal, all kind of linking together. And then they can use the stuff around the water to phase. I guess phasing is the way I'd frame it, and possibly even as portals, as Ian kind of hinted out. There's might be a portal connection, and the idea there being a portal connection makes a lot of sense because that allows them to travel all over the place. I definitely know there's bases. I've been in a couple from my contact events, but I'm not certain that if you're having a contact event or having, say, for example, let's talk about, let's say, Indian Arm, where the Belcaris, Mount Seymour, Deep Cove is. Does that mean there's something in the water? I don't know that, actually. I don't know that. And I don't know that I would say that I would think that there is. I literally think that the phasing aspect of them, the dimensional, we'll just go into that realm, is it means that they don't even need that. Actually, it means they don't even need a base there. If they're putting a base somewhere, then it might have another aspect of what they are trying to do, or maybe they're interacting with another species that doesn't have the same abilities. I don't really know. Even as I say that, the base that I went to did have humanoids, so maybe that I'm hitting on something when I say that. But I filmed them disappearing. A lot of people see them disappearing. For me, I'm convinced they're literally going into like the astral realm or whatever that realm is, and they're phasing into this other space. And so the whole idea of needing a base in that water area maybe doesn't even make sense to me. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of options they have. That's my guess, and that they're utilizing things based on need for the moment of who they're interacting with, or what species they're interacting with, or what they're planning on doing, or the research that they're even doing. That's my probably best. I actually typically think of it as more like quantum. So they have tons of options, and there's a lot more things that we can't even understand that they're utilizing and interacting with. And we're just seeing the kind of tail end of it.
Yeah, and David Pilates has noticed this very common element of people disappearing near water or being found in water too. And so I'm wondering if maybe some bodies of water act as like kind of like the basis, or like kind of like a thing that supports portals or liminal activity,
Yeah.
or what you were calling the paranormal ecosystem, maybe with other creatures in other worlds.
Yeah. That's it. That you got it. Like when you do the research on portals, like that NASA website that I showed, maybe I'll actually put it up, because it's when you learn about what creates an actual physical portal, it's actually really interesting what makes a portal. Here, I'll put the research in here. I'm sorry. So for those who want to read it, so that's the NASA website about portals. And what's fascinating is, so they're talking about the sun and the planet Earth. So you have basically a large magnetic field gets created. And then when they hit a certain frequency, instantaneously, you can send information between them. So, basically they can, I think the idea is with quantum beyond the speed of light. So I can only imagine that if we're talking about portals and water, that we're talking about something similar, that there might be a frequency that we're not aware of that's occurring above water, bodies of water or running water. And, there's a lot of ions, right? There's negative ions that flow extremely around running water and or around bodies of water. So there might be something like that where there's an electromagnetic effect occurring and they're just simply tuning in. And and then you got a portal that's occurring. And I don't believe that, even from Skinwalker Ranch, like the credible people witnessing portals, they're witnessing an entity, not a craft. So it's got to be something to do with consciousness. Like maybe a person can literally. This is what like David Pilates zeroes in on. Like, could an entity just actually be the one to generate a portal itself? Is that what Sasquatch is doing? It's able to do it with its mind, right? That's how advanced it goes. That entities can just make them themselves, and then you can transfer into space, or maybe you can move from physical realm to physical body of water to another physical body of water. I'm not really clear, but I do agree and think that there's something electromagnetic going on around water, and that's why we have these entities or this occurrence around bodies of water. Though, obviously there's tons to still understand here. So
Yeah, definitely. I also believe that places like Skinwalker Ranch and other places without much water on the surface of the ground, some places like that probably have underground rivers, and some do. And underground rivers, especially where they intersect, tend to create weird activity.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, you got it. I really so I'm learning that megalithic structures are all built, a lot of them are built on top of running water, like the Great Pyramid and such. And I also missing 401, the UFO connection, he zeroes in on a body of water in the central of America, and that the aliens told a contactee to drill and you'll find water there, when humans didn't know there was water underneath there, by the way. I thought that was really fascinating. And it turns out I was like fascinated by that connection, because my own city that I talk about in my book is placed in Central America. And I was like, oh my God, I'm seeing a large connection here. And of course, that was on top of this huge reservoir of water that sits under Central America. So yeah, man,
Jeff,
you're bang on about that. Yeah,
Jeff,
you can go. Yeah.
On that point, Tamara's in the audience at the moment, and she would like to know a little bit more about about the city and the book. I don't know what her specific question is, but Tamara, come on in and ask Jeff.
Hi, Tamara.
Okay. Oh, hi. Oh, all this time I wasn't on mute. Oh my God. So maybe you
Yeah,
can
I
hear
know.
my background noise. I didn't know
couldn't
because
hear
I've
you.
been on mute all day. Can
No,
you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly. Yeah, totally.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I saw a city. I had the vision to build a city, or to begin to prepare to build a city. Not by myself, of course, but perhaps it means that there are many people all over who are seeing this and will be part of building the city, or some portion of it, or something. I don't know. But I haven't read your book yet, so I was just wondering what exactly details can you give and the time that you have about the city that they showed you.
Tamara, are you are you public? Are you a public contactee? Have you talked to other people about this?
You know, not many, just
No.
a couple. Like
Right.
there was a person speaking a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned it to them. I told my family, well, a couple of people in my family, a
Are you
couple of friends.
are you an alien contactee? Have you had alien contact?
When I was a child, yeah,
Interesting.
when I
And
was a
is
child, but I don't remember any of that. But I
right.
do, and in dreams, I guess in dream time, I have visitations that some I remember, some I don't remember, but they don't appear to me to be aliens. They appear to me to be light beings, or people who like,
Interesting.
like I can't even describe, but because I do vocal sound healing, and they
Yeah.
came to me in my dream to teach me how to do that.
Yeah.
So, and I do my own work here, and I believe I'm doing galactic communication. So,
Yeah.
but it's just very natural. I don't focus on it or think about it. I just do it,
Yeah.
and just know that something is taking place.
Okay. Very cool. So the city was shown to me on one was a hologram. So I was on a craft. It was on the 10th contact event where I saw the cow. So we talked about that in northern Saskatchewan. That was the whole cattle mutilation. In that contact event, he showed me a that the planet would struggle. Now there was no timelines were given to me. So that the planet would struggle with basically humans stressing out the planet. So the biosphere would stress out. Then it was like kind of symbolic. Then it turned into a big flame of a ball of fire. And then it got recreated. And the idea was that the gray aliens were involved in the recreation. In the book, I say the gray alien mind would dominate. I think that's what I said. And in the center of North America was a circular city, like a circular city placed in the center of North America. I'm making a new edition. I'm trying to get as specific as possible. I considered it maybe about 1,000 kilometer diameter. So it was a massive city, dead center of the continent, starting at just under the Canadian border. Well, that places it underneath this water reservoir that was in missing 411 connection. And I just thought that was a really weird thing. So it's a massive city. I see it again in the gray aliens communicate through imagery. So I have another contact event, and this happens in 2016. And so in it, she says, what does she say? There, basically, the whole premise is we're coming, and there will be a new city. And then she shows me the city, and I immediately connected. It was the city I saw back in this hologram back many years before, and then she showed it to me up close, and it was metallic emerald, and it was what I call as a metallic emerald is, and it was condensed and futuristic, and then and I could see hybrids were in the city. So gray alien human hybrids were in the city. That's now it's combined with a bunch of information that they gave me. So and I'm only left to like kind of deduce from the holograms that they gave me, this kind of consciousness information they gave me. And I call it enlightened, not because they told me that, but because I know their technology is consciousness technology. And I know that I know you have to have a certain degree of consciousness understanding to use their stuff. And I knew that from other communications, we'll say that humans, like there's no speciesism, there's no racism here, there's no speciesism. There is a complete acceptance of everyone, but you have to have an awareness of a degree of consciousness, or else you can't understand their world, you can't make sense of it. And so my whole mission was to basically do all this stuff, do what I'm doing here, present this information, put it out. They kind of said by doing so, you're preparing your world for the city that we will build. And that's and I do believe that, man. I'm not like clear about the rest, but I believe it 100%. I also I'm not clear how much was symbolic, but it so far that was let's put it this way, the entire time I've been telling people, I don't know where this city is. I don't know what the truth is. All I know is I was told this, and then and you have to make up your own mind. But the funny part is that as I continue living and continue doing this and learning and researching, I'm finding more and more information that's validating exactly what the hologram showed me. The placement of it maybe has something to do with Central America, that the hybrids might be involved. Like anyway, so that's the gist of it. That's the bigger picture I can provide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you. I'm always interested in hearing about other people having the kind of impulse around cities and stuff. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Jeff.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because you describe it as an emerald city. Well, the most famous emerald city in popular culture is
metallic
the
emerald. Metallic emerald. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Of the Wizard of Oz, isn't it? The Emerald City. Perhaps that's something in the collective consciousness of it, because obviously the whole Wizard of Oz thing about being swept up in a tornado. It's almost like an abduction in itself, with Dorothy ending up in the fictional world, as the fantasy type world of Oz. But I mean, that is described as the Emerald City, and in the Emerald City, everyone in the Emerald City is made to wear green tinted spectacles. This is explained as an effort to protect their eyes from the brightness and glory of the city. It makes everything appear green when it is in fact no more green than any other city. So
wait, do they say emerald? Do they say Emerald City?
Emerald City. That's the Wizard of Oz.
Right, metallic. Yeah, so I'm saying metallic emerald, but yeah, still like this was a metal that this was like silicone. I've researched silicone, and that's what I'm convinced this was like emerald. The emerald being silicone, and so it's metallic. Yeah, so it has a metallic like rock feel is what it had, like a metallic rock, but a metal shine that was unnatural. Like it's an unnatural but beautiful. Like so fascinating, man, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I just wondered again, like I said, if it was perhaps something else that others have seen in a collective consciousness, and that's where perhaps the inspiration came from Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz and the Emerald City, to put an Emerald City in it and give it that title.
Yeah, I was talking with I have other people who've been given instructions about a city, and it's from Gray Aliens, and I thought that was really fascinating. So yeah, there's more here, and I will hopefully do more research and put more pieces together. Brian Rue.
Yes, Jeff, I've hiked a lot of these places you described, so this adds a lot of depth to my hiking memories. Like Stomach Chief was my very first hike in 1980 that I did when I moved here.
Right.
I want to mention first, you mentioned Wilbert Smith
Yeah.
gave a talk to a Flying Saucer Club in 1961. We have a friend here, Gordy Tong, and he was in the Vancouver Flying Saucer Club in 1963. So maybe
Ancient.
maybe that was actually the name of the club. And
Yeah,
he's
maybe,
still
eh?
around. Like, I guess he was a teenager then. I think he's about 73 or 74 now. So
Right.
that was probably it. I want to mention we're actually about the Bigfoot. That reminds me of a description, like the Buddha described yakas, which is probably the Bigfoot. And he does describe it as an interdimensional being. Like he says it's it's probably the same in Vedic literature. It's one of the lowest devas, angels in the lower heaven, and it's kind of it's an interdimensional being. And he describes it coming into physical form, like people would see it. But there's a book 3 centuries after the Buddha called The Questions of King Melinda with this enlightened Nagasena, Tuxus King, and describes why you never find bones of the Bigfoot or the Yaka, because it's an interdimensional being. So in Buddhism, that's very much known as a type of interdimensional, the Yaka or the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot. Right. But they're regarded as dangerous. Like when you talk about people getting their heads ripped off, like there's protection chants for monks in the forest, because they kill people. They kick them in the air, rip them apart. They're described as dangerous. I'm just wondering if that adds any insight, if you've thought about that, or is that part of your Vedic literature?
I don't know anything about the Vedic talking about Bigfoot or anything of that nature. So I don't actually have I don't have that from the Vedic perspective at all. What's really interesting to note is David Paulides says there is no Sasquatch has never been observed being aggressive. Now, it's really interesting, and yet you'll get some of these very aggressive behaviors that occur. That's why I lean towards paranormal ecosystems, because you still get paranormal, you can get aggressive behaviors occurring in a Sasquatch area. So it's kind of like maybe they hide that aggressive behavior, or they're only interdimensional when they're doing it. Or we're looking at overlapping of species. So there's an animal or a type of creature that will be aggressive to humans. But the Bigfoot is never actually ever seen being aggressive to humans. Not in that way, not in a way that's going to tear a human apart, right? But something does that. And also, not just that, in the missing 411 that looks like it's an animal, it looks like it eats them. Something eats humans. That's what's even weirder. And someone will take a human and will be big enough and strong enough to turn a full-grown man upside down. There's a couple cases of a full-grown man being turned upside down because all his keys and all his money is the only thing that's left, as if he got turned upside down. And then he's quickly something is running him, and his boot get caught on a fence. And there's like one in the States like that. It's like that. That looks like something big, picked him up, turned him upside down, and ran with him. And even Bigfoot is cited holding like a Bigfoot-like creature is cited holding him. But then when the personal interactions occur, you're not getting these aggressive types. So it's just such a strange. That's why I lean it towards the paranormal ecosystems, that you might be dealing with multiple types. Think nature. That's what I think. Like, think you got your stellar jays over here, while you got the blue jay over in Toronto. You can have that kind of thing going on here. We have the same type of species that acts a little bit differently, maybe has slightly the same paranormal entity abilities, but maybe slightly different as well too. So I think when you start looking that way, humans might start being able to make sense of some of this stuff. So yeah,
that is described in Buddhist literature, like yakas, rakshasas, various types. But some are aggressive, but that does fit in with Buddhist literature. But thanks, you, Troy. Jeff. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you got it, Brian. Thanks, Troy, for being here. Thanks, man. I appreciate the thank you. Awesome. Yeah, Brian, you got it, man. Thank you. Mimi.
I'm muted. I keep muting myself.
It's good.
On purpose.
I
wanted to say 2 things. One is that I'm really interested in Enoch's story in the Bible, because I believe that they are related to the people that I saw in my abduction. So when some of these people go missing, you know, we on the receiving end of that, watching them go missing and the families missing them and everything, we think it's a very bad thing. But if
Right.
you look back at Enoch's story, Enoch walked with God. So
Right.
God actually took him to a city like the city that you're talking about.
Right.
And he lived among the gods in the cities, in
Right.
the fourth dimensional city or fifth dimensional city. So there's a lot that we still don't know about these missing cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, obviously we miss our people and we don't want them to disappear on us, but it could be also that some of them are being taken to live among the aliens for a while. You know, there's a lot of military that say that they've done 20 and back, and it could be in 15 minutes. Well, maybe some of these people are doing 20 and back and it's taking longer, you
Yeah.
know. I don't know, but it is a really interesting subject. And I, as I said in my little text there, I've learned a lot today. And that's one of the reasons I stayed for so long, is that it's very interesting,
Yeah.
you know, and I had never really looked at this. So I have a question for Tamara. Tamara, you said that the people that you saw, I think it was in your dream, maybe lucid dream, were light beings. The people that I interact with are light beings, and they are basically Martians, and with probably from Noah's family, Noah and Enoch's family, and they have the shining countenance. So you can't see their faces, but they have white hair, like Noah had. And so I was interested in what your light beings looked like.
Well, this dream that I had was 2010, I think it was. And I was living abroad, and these beings, there were three of them, they came in my dream and they showed me how to do sound healing. And I don't remember the details of what they look like, but I just remember receiving all this training and them showing me that I would be doing this. And I guess at that particular time, all of this was new to me, but it was coming to me. I was getting major downloads about music and sound and everything. And
Right.
then it culminated in the vision of them and the dream, because prior to that it was just information that was coming to me. And then all of a sudden it was these beings that were there. And I wonder, when I was a child, I had a physical encounter where they actually came to me physically. And there were three beings, but they looked like grays or something. They just looked, they didn't, they looked different. They didn't look like us.
Mhm.
So I called them beings of light instinctively, because I'm thinking, well, who else could they have been? However, I would like to tie in the Hathor experience, because the work that I do is very similar. The type of vocal sound healing that I do is very similar to the type of vocal sound healing that the artist Tom Kenyon does. There are a lot of vocal sound healers, but we don't all operate the same. But when I listen to him, we do the same things. And so I'm thinking, wow, this really helps me to feel normal, because I don't sound like one of those wayfish sea siren girls who are just going, "Whoa." You know, I'm doing all kinds of other weird noises and stuff. And so he speaks a lot about the Hathors, and the Hathors come to me information wise in books and information like that. And I'm thinking, could it be that some of these Egyptian things that we talk about, they're all related to these light beings, these star seeds, these different things? And so I'm just piecing together the different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, sound healing sound is really, really, I think that we're going to have more and more of it in the world. It's very important, and we haven't seen the importance of it yet. I know that I had my Kundalini rising from doing vowel sounds, vocalizing, and I've started doing
Okay.
that again.
Mhm.
To see if it happens again. It only happened once. I've been doing
Mhm.
vowel sounds for a long time, but the vibration that you feel inside
Right.
the
Well,
cavities in your bones, right? I think
just
that's what does it.
just
It's really
remember that
amazing.
don't
Can
worry
you put your
about
website
making a
or
specific.
whatever on the chat
Yeah,
if people want to get in touch?
yeah, sure. I was just gonna say, just remember that when you're doing the sounding, be intuitive. Don't focus on any one sound. Just focus on the sound that comes to you to make, and then
Yes.
make sure it's a vibration. Don't worry about how it sounds, and then you
Mhm.
will find yourself in that place again. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Awesome. Brian, go ahead, man.
Yeah, sorry. I just I don't know. We were both talking at the same time, so I was saying to Mara, if there's a way to get in touch with you for sound and stuff, if you have a website or
Yeah, I
email
just
or
put my
something.
website in the I put my website in the link. Or in the chat, sorry. Sorry. I think there's a sound carryover. So like when it's bleeding the sounds together, bleeding them. I don't know. Sorry.
Brian, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I want to comment on the Men in Black. I don't know if you met Beverly Beatty. We've known her since 2009 here, and she saw Men in Black in Burnaby, right along the highway. She
Told me
saw
this,
this
yeah.
tremendous. Have you ever spoken with Beverly? I know she wanted to talk to you.
No, you told me about it though. You told me about her this event.
Yeah, Ian met her like last year. She was on one of our videos, and she saw this huge craft, like size of a stadium. But then right after that, she called a radio station. Then immediately, like within 30 seconds, there's a car paralleling them on the number one highway in Burnaby with a Men in Black, and they would slow down. Her husband would speed up and slow down, and he was staring right at them, like just like that. It was too fast for a human being to be there,
Right. Very
Yeah,
bizarre.
and we've come across some men in black appearing while the people are actually looking at the UFO. One guy I interviewed, ex-military here, only perhaps, let's say, 15 miles from where I am at the moment. I went with him into the forest one Sunday to where he'd actually witnessed this UFO. Well, actually, he thought he knew the forest. He said, it's odd. I came across this huge building that we didn't know was there. I thought, well, here we go, screen memory and all that. And he said, then we saw the UFO, and we were watching this huge UFO, and the car pulled up. He said, we didn't hear the car either. And this was before electric cars became popular. He said, it just came up. And the guy telepathically told me in my head, it's a weather balloon. So you had the cover up, but it's again such a bizarre circumstances. And he said the dog had peed itself and was beside itself, really. He and his wife were there in awe at this UFO that they'd seen. Plus, they'd got this building that they suddenly saw that hadn't been there before. Anyway, I picked him up and took him out into the forest because I wanted him to show me exactly where it happened. And the road was blocked, and there were military helicopters. Now, his sighting happened years and years before. This was several years before. And suddenly that Sunday morning, I decided to take him out there. And it is by a military base, by the way. But the roads were blocked with these sort of like barriers, like you see in the films, these red and white barriers going across the roads and those sort of things. And I thought, all of this is very strange. And these helicopters were hovering around in the forest, but we couldn't get to where we wanted to actually revisit the site. Very, very strange and sad. Oh, by the way, Jeff, I sent you that Man in Black video.
I see it here.
Email.
Yeah, I saw it here. What is this? What is this video? This is the one from?
That's the short video I sent you, which is the guy with the odd foot.
Have you this is what? Oh yeah. What?
Can you see it?
Yeah. His leg is bizarre. His leg is like broken while he's walking. Yeah, that's really weird. Go ahead.
Yeah, he looks directly at her while she's sitting there having a coffee.
Right. There's a really good Men in Black in Niagara Falls. A security camera picks them up, and two men walk in, and then they end up communicating with the desk manager, and they're looking for one of the people who works there, and they're like, "There's not here right now." But the guys are so weird. They speak in telepathy. They look, they're like bald with bleached white, like their skin is super white, and their eyes were very weird. And the guy was so weirded out by them that they took the security camera, but the guy speaking in telepathy was the whole major thing. And they took the security camera. Now the security camera exists, and so there's security footage of these Men in Black. And yeah, they hold themselves. They're very weird. They don't. They look abnormal. They don't look quite like that, but still very with the top hat. They have the rim hat, and they look like their shoulders, like their shoulder pads, like their jackets are so strange, and and they walk with big gaits. And anyway, I don't know. Weird shit, but that's out in Niagara Falls, and I thought that was really strange. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to say as well that I have I just did a search on some of the people who have contacted me, or I've got some contacts. There's this one guy talks about his father. This is quite funny, really, because this is a bit synchronous or whatever. It says, as a young boy of 6 years old in 1987, I was visited in my dreams by dozens of little lights and glowing helicopter toys and flying saucers. As I awoke from my dream, I ran downstairs to get my father to help me get back to bed. Back in bed, I was giggling with surprise at the vision returning. When my dad asked what was so funny, sounds like the police officer, doesn't it?
right.
I told him what I saw, and that I could still see the small glowing balls of light and flying saucers and flying toys. He never saw anything that night, but was supportive due to his personal encounter with a UFO in the forests of northern British Columbia, Canada, in the late 1970s.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that weird?
That is weird. Forced. Do you know where? Do you know what forest he's talking
I
about?
should reach out to them and see if they can tell me some more.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
He now lives in South Texas, but let's see if we can find out.
Yeah, really strange. Brian, you want to speak?
Yeah, I was also going to mention with Beverly, she described a fluttering, flashing butterfly like UFO, similar to what you're talking about earlier. This was in Langley, and it sort of caused her to take a nap in the field, asked her to take a nap, and she saw it flashing. She told other witnesses who were in the field, do you see this? And I was part of I was an associate with ufobc for 5 years. This is one of the first cases I went to investigate with Beverly was there and Martin Jasic. We went to the exact field, but
Wow.
similar to what you described, and that happened in Langley. I'm not sure when. It must have happened about 10 or 15 years ago.
So there was one, right, I mentioned in this presentation, and that was
I think you said Langley. Yeah, hers was in Langley.
I thought mine was a teenage kid, and then he said felt like he was being watched. He went into a field, and then the fluttering, like a CD, like he said, it was the size of a metal CD, and it came out of the ground and started fluttering. And then that's when he was like, "Oh wow!" And then he went over to some workers, and then they all observed the metal object in the sky.
Yeah, interesting. There's two workers in the field, and it was a small thing, like probably just a foot or two across.
Are you telling me that that's Beverly's? That's Beverly's contact or her sighting?
Well, no, I think it must have been two different sightings, I assume. But it was a very similar thing. It was
very similar,
like a butterfly, metallic.
Yeah.
And we did an investigation with ufobc, so it's probably on their website. And it caused her, like she pulled over her car. She was at a Starbucks waiting for Frenchie, and she just was standing by this field, and she was told to go into the field and take a nap, which was out of character for her. So she laid down, and then she had this experience. So she was led into doing this. She told me all about it.
Again, Brian. Yeah, and Brian, yeah, it's good to see you here. But again, it's that lured into the field to do something very unusual and just go and have a nap in the field.
Yeah, like why would she do that, right?
Yeah. That's not normal.
And she's from a military base near Ian. Like she's British, and she had an amazing sighting at the age of 8. I mean, she's had a lot of sightings all throughout her life. She just recently moved to Alberta. Yeah. But also I want to mention, you're talking about Duncan. I know Sebastian Martin in Duncan, and he's an experiencer, and he said there's portals there. He had a UFO meetup group. Nancy and I, we drove there in 2016, an all-day presentation, and he came in Vancouver. I did a video with him here. Amazing experiences, but he's just a year older than you, and he had a memory of being a Pleiadian, like he had this hypnosis
Right.
memory, and had a
You told me about
Pleiadian
him.
family, and his
Yeah.
father said, "Oh, I'm going to give you an earthly incarnation. It'd be good for you to be a human being."
Right.
But he's an amazing guy, Sebastian Martin, and he has a really very good-looking Palladian look, and very successful in business, and very gifted, and very psychic. You know, similar to you. You know, almost your age, like a year older than you. But he described Duncan as a real hotspot and portals there, and he was a bit wary about it. Like he didn't want to disappear in a portal. He was a bit concerned about all these portals in Duncan.
Right.
He's still there. I talked to him last year on the phone, and Gordy Tong talks to him sometimes too.
So this is, I posted that sighting. I had to do it. I didn't know. That's the 24th April 2009. Is that hers? Is this Beverly's, or is this someone else's? That's the sighting that I used for my my presentation. Is that it? I had to know.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm reading here. Yeah, let me read right now.
Because that's a really weird coincidence if it is. There's no coincidence. Synchronicities always speaking to us in this way, right?
So I guess there's no name on this, right?
No, they never report the names. It's always anonymous.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she said, I went to the local coffee house and had a latte. I wonder if this is her. I'm just reading it now.
I
Sorry,
thought
slow
I
down
thought
your
it was a
video.
boy, but or a teenage boy, but
Yeah, that must be the man working in the field. Yeah. So, yeah.
that the right timeline,
Yeah,
2009?
yeah, it's jumping like a butterfly. Yeah, 2009 Science Right. That's when we met her. Yeah. It definitely sounds like the right date. I'm just reading now. This must be Beverly's. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think Martin
interesting.
Jacek wrote, because I was on this investigation myself with Martin Jacek.
Interesting.
Yeah, this has got to be Beverly. Yeah,
Yeah.
look at that. I'm just reading it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this must be hers,
Yeah,
because she got a coffee at the Starbucks there in Langley.
right.
Yeah, that's Beverly's. Beverly
That's
Beatty.
interesting. That's interesting. Interesting. I used
Yeah.
that for the presentation. Yeah. I thought it was
We
I
could
thought
do
it was
this
a
sometime.
yeah, I thought it was a teenage boy. I think I might have said it's a kid or something, or a teenager. I think because he was using a bus, so I might have made some
Well, she was born in 1966, so.
right. Right. Oh, that's
Wow.
wild stuff. Whew. I can't believe how big that was. That was awesome. I by, what is it called? Second wind. I think by like the 2.5 hour mark, I was like, I feel great. I was like,
Yeah.
I felt I had so much energy at that point. The second wind, I couldn't believe I had a second wind. It was pretty wild. Yeah. That was intense. It was good though.
Now, I was thinking what you saw from Stama's chief in the water, like again, in Buddhism, the Buddha described Nagas living in the water, like they're a type of Deva that actually likes water, like the lake, like Ogopogo monster in Okanagan Lake, but that's probably a Naga. Although usually they're kind of serpent-like looking, like you saw something, I guess, big and white, right? Like a whale or something.
It's kind of whale-like, yeah. Yeah.
But in Buddhism, they describe various creatures that like to live in the water, like Nagas. So I just wonder if it's something like that, something which is also interdimensional.
Yeah, I have no knowledge. And then there are like legends of sea monsters all around Vancouver Island. So maybe it's something to do with I just don't have no idea, man. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Oh wow.
Yeah, that Hammerson Peters website or YouTube channel is really good. And everything's local, it's all Canadian, so he's Canadian. And he'll focus on mythology and strange cases of bizarre things all over Canada. And so he has a video on the legendary sea monsters of Vancouver Island. Yeah. And there actually is a strange couple sightings of bizarre repeated creature that looks like a horse. That has a head like this, and several different people in the early 1800s and 1900s saw this thing. And it's credible people what witnessed it, and they didn't know what the hell they're looking at. So
wow.
Well, Jeff, the Loch Ness Monster was previously known as a water horse.
Right. Yeah, something
And
similar to
that's
that.
depicted in one of those videos, isn't it? About the Loch Ness Monster. One of those films, movies, a children's film,
Right.
The Water Horse.
Oh,
There's a photograph, isn't there, of the monster of Lake Ogopogo or Ogopogo, is
Ogopogo,
it?
yeah. Ogopogo, yeah.
Uh,
Ogopogo.
and that is
Ogopogo.
and it shows it being white as well. Have you seen that picture?
I don't know that there's any credible or real photos of it. I don't know that. I've never heard of that actually. Is you actually think there's a photo of it somewhere?
Yeah. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Ogopogo. Is it Lake?
I helped a ghost transition, guys. Does that trip anybody out?
What? Sorry.
The ghost transitioning.
Yes.
That's crazy shit for me, man.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, Jeff.
It surprised me.
Yeah, but all this
Right.
is related.
Yeah, it's all related, and the abilities were the same, telepathy and stuff, right? But just insane. Yeah, that's
I want to hear at some point, maybe in your next presentation that you do, I'd like to hear the exact thing about the ghost transitioning,
sure.
like more, more into that particular story.
Sure.
But I wanted to say just a quickie. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences in Mexico with ghosts.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you guys 3 quick ones. I went to a shamanic get together with a Huichol shaman, and I was the translator, so that she spoke Huichol, and then someone translated the Huichol to Spanish, and I translated the Spanish to English. So there was a whole bunch of gringos there. There was about 20 of us there at the thing. And at one point we were all sitting in circle around the on the beach. And suddenly we hear these hooves of horses. And then we look, and there was 2 horses going down to the beach, towards the water. And I couldn't see. Some people saw the whole thing, but I only saw up to like the belly of the horses. And I saw the ghost's leg and feet. And it was just the turn of the 19th century dress with the spats, with a lady dressed in these crinolines and spats. And it was just beautiful. And the shaman asked us if any of us had seen any ghosts, like any beings at one point. And she said, in this particular spot, and we were across from a cemetery, this beach in Sayulita is across from the cemetery, very close to it. And apparently ghosts go down there all the time. But there's a couple that dances, and they as far as beckoning people, they're dancing, and they dance so beautifully that people join them, and they kind of get people to join them, and then they drown.
Whoa.
So she was saying, if you see this, don't go with them, because people drown. So that was one. That was really an interesting one. It was amazing because it was shared with, out of the 20 people, about 5 of us saw it. So that was a lot. And the way it looked, it was like the old grainy black and white TVs, kind of with a little bit of a blue tone to it, kind of like what my hand is doing right now.
Trippy.
But yeah, it was kind of blue and moving like the old TVs. The other thing was, in 2 of the houses that I've moved into down there, the previous house, I moved in, and the very first night, or it was, I think, the first or the second night that I was there, I felt something. I felt a being sit on the edge of the bed, like I was in the middle, and the being sat, and you could see like in an indent and everything. And I told the landlady, I said, oh, something really, really strange happened to me last night. And she said, oh, did the ghost sit on your bed? I said, yes, the ghost sat on my bed. And she goes, oh, she does that all the time. When people move in, she wants to know who, because she was the old owner of the house. She says she just wants to know who's in the house. Right. So that was really freakish. And then in the house that I currently have been in, the very first night that I slept in the upstairs bedroom, I saw a ghostly figure go down the hall, didn't notice me or speak to me or anything, just went down the hall dressed in white. And again, the landlady, probably a week into my visit, into my stay at this house, she says to me, have you seen anything strange? Have you seen any apparitions or anything upstairs? And I said, well, yeah, I didn't want to say because I didn't want to sound weird, but yeah, I've seen this thing. And she goes, all of my sisters who live all around the house in different apartments close to this house, she says, all of my sisters have seen her.
Right.
So, yeah,
That's
but
fascinating.
it only happened to me in Mexico.
That's fascinating. No, let me tell you my story. I'll totally tell it if everyone's okay with that. I actually think those are totally fascinating. The time one is amazing. The horses, that is something else. That's really something else. Yeah. So okay. So I work. For those who know, I work. I basically work. I won't say who I work for, but I jump around to facility, and I was going to Burnaby, so I had to go to Burnaby there. And the people in my work knew it was haunted, so they said, "Oh, it's really exciting to know that you're going there. It's haunted. Did you know?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know that. Very interesting." So they kind of prepped me ahead of time. And then when I showed up, the building does feel off. It feels weird, and it was old. And right away, I within a couple hours, I started asking people. I heard a place is haunted, and yeah, people were like, "Oh yeah, there's something in the basement. Oh yeah, there's something there." And they're all blue. They're blue collar. I work in a blue collar environment, so the idea that they were kind of gung ho about it is very weird. I learned that supervisors could feel it and they didn't like it and they left. I learned truck drivers came in and could feel it. Everybody felt it. Everybody could felt. Specifically, it was downstairs. Something would go downstairs. You'd feel like you're being watched. My friend had the door slammed when no one was down there, and the door slammed. People felt heard a voice once. They sort of like the lights were flickering once, so it was kind of weird. But I could really feel it. I had this kind of sensitivity about it, and I could really feel it. So the first day, I decided I was going to go check it out, and I went by myself down to the basement. And I actually, I treated it like it was a person who was invisible. And I said, I tried to be compassionate actually, and tried to say, I'm here. I think I can feel you. I know you're here, and I'm just, I'm a friend. Like I just want to learn about you. And I just treated it like I was exploring. And I ate my lunch, and I ended up having a feeling about like disability, something like, and I got an image of a wheelchair in my mind. And I went back upstairs and I told the coworker, I said, "Oh, the one who knew I was learning about it." And she was really excited. I was kind of taking it on and trying to understand it. And I said, "Oh, I got this image of like disability or wheelchair." And she was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Come here." She showed me the meeting room upstairs, and there's a goddamn wheelchair there. And I was like, "Oh, that's really weird. What's this wheelchair doing?" And it's old and raggedy. And I'm like, "What's this wheelchair doing here?" And she's like, "Nobody knows. Nobody knows where it comes from. Nobody knows why it sits in the meeting room." And then I went to the supervisor, and I'm like, "Hey, why do you have a wheelchair in your meeting room?" He said, "What wheelchair?" I was like, "What?" Like, "There's a wheelchair that sits in your meeting room." He's like, "That's really weird." And we both went over there, and he sat there and he looked at it and said, "I never noticed this was here before." So this wheelchair, this old wheelchair, this raggedy wheelchair sits in the building. It's really strange. Anyway, I probably gave it another couple days, and I decided I was going to try and investigate. Now I had a synchronicity. First thing I did was in the morning. I just normal meditation I was doing in the morning. And in the meditation, I was opening a door. Like as the meditation ended, this kind of really intense imagination came into me, and I was opening a door, and a woman was standing inside. Nothing big. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, "Oh, weird. Okay." That day I decided I'm going to go take my phone. I took my phone and I started videoing, and I was like, I'm going to go back downstairs during lunch, and I'm going to go to every corner of the basement. I'm going to check out if anything happens to me. So I filmed, and I was going around, and the place is large, and I was filming. I'm like, "Oh, I feel so strange in certain spots. I can feel really cold in these kind of corners of the basement." I didn't really understand it. And then there's this like odd room that sits in the corner, and you come down the stairs, and there's this odd room down a hallway. This door is wooden. It's like a really thick wood door with metal planks along the sides. And then when you open the door, it clanks because there's a chain that's hooked from the backside. Yeah, totally weirdo stuff. A chain goes in the inside. So I guess if the door slams on you, you can open it. That's the idea. So it has this metal clank and it's chain anyway, whatever. You open inside, and there's these ancient boilers in the inside. So these from the 1940s, and they look really weird. The room is weird. And I was like, whoa, taking the camera in. And then there's this other room, so attached to this boiler room. And I go there and I'm like, I open the door, and as soon as I do, it's pitch black and something goes shuffles inside. I'm like, oh, and I freak out, and I literally freak out. I think something is in the room, and I'm scared something's going to shut the door, that clanky door. So I freak out, and I literally back out, and I'm on camera with all this stuff, and I'm like, okay. I try to gain my strength, and I go into the room. I turn the light on. It's like a 40-foot storage space, but it feels awful. It was like, the whole vibe, and I didn't mention this part, the vibe of the basement was awful. Like something bad happened. It just felt horrible and awful. And I'm on film, I'm filming, and I turn the light off. And I go back upstairs and I show my friend the room, and me going in the room, and you could hear something is in the room and shuffling. And so we both go back downstairs right away. The light is back on. The one I'm on film turning off. We're talking like minutes, like no one was down there. It was me, plus it's in this back weird space. So something had turned the light back on. And I was, at that point, I knew something had happened and something was there. Anyway, that night I went and did the meditation again. And then in the meditation, again at the exact same time, at the end of the meditation, right, like from the last couple seconds, I'm closing, there's a woman in a room, and now I'm closing the door. And I realized, holy shit, that was I meditated. In my meditation was the door of that room that I opened. I like put it all together, and I actually realized I was like a premonition. Like I dreamt of, or meditated. In my meditation was me opening the door of that very door. And then I heard, once I put it together, that was that room, I heard the words say, "You were the one who opened the door." And that would be, in Ian's language, permission, me giving permission to me being to involve myself with this alien, with this entity. Anyway, from that point onwards, it started interacting with me, and it started communicating with me, and it knew I could hear it. And that was the main thing. It knew I could hear it, and it was talking to me. The problem is that I could feel its insane vibe. Whatever happened to it, my language is that I think it killed itself, or it was a slow, drawn out death in that spot. I tried to research the building, and it turned out the building was older than the purchase than we had purchased it. So it was obviously from the early 1900s, and someone died there. That's what I'm convinced of. But they were trying to befriend me. But every time I felt the awful feelings of that room, and I hated it. I was like, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. A week went by, or a couple weeks, and I did an EVP experiment. Me and a friend went down to that very room, the dark, evil, weird room, and then we asked a list of questions. And she was running static, and I asked questions. And when I asked the question, had anybody died here, the phone went pop, 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 and these audios. And I was like, oh, weird. And I went and analyzed the audio, and there was these glitches right after I asked the question, did anybody die here? So I was convinced that was the entity telling me. And anyway, we both were feeling like shit in the room. Like our hearts were repressed, our skins were tingling, we felt awful. I couldn't even be in the room. She couldn't be in the room. And it was so obvious that was the kind of the house of the paranormal activity. When you leave the room, you felt better. So the room itself was so intense. The vibe was so thick. Anyway, one night by myself in my house, I hear the entity again, and it's saying, I need you to help me. Like it was kind of demanding it, actually. I was like, I don't know how to help you. And then it said, learn. And I was like, what? So then I actually went and did a Google search, how to help a ghost transition. But then something crazy happened. I felt all the feelings of that room, and I was overcome with emotion, and I started to bawl for it. I had just this utter empathy for that thing. And I don't even have the story. That's the crazy part. I just knew something horrible, a tragedy on the level, a human tragedy happened there. A human tragedy, someone had to face something that was utterly horrible. And I cried for it. And I kept saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's awful. I'm so sorry. And I could just feel all this human tragedy, death, suicide, or prolonged death, like worried about its death, like facing its death and scared for its death. And then I was done crying. And once I was done, I felt amazing. And then I heard it say, you helped me, thank you. Anyway, I didn't know what the hell to make of any of that. I really didn't know what the hell to make of that. And I left it, and I was like, okay, whatever. I went back, and when we went back to my job, I was like, oh, I'm not attracted to the space anymore. I couldn't hear the creature or the entity. I didn't think about it anymore. I didn't want to deal with it. And then it was a synchronicity that had me go back downstairs, and someone said, hey, I need your help. Can you come downstairs? And when I went down there, I was like, hey, do you feel the ghost? And she's like, no, I don't feel the ghost at all. And then I brought my friend who did the EVP experiment with me, and she had the horrible feelings in the room, and I had the horrible feelings. And we went back to the room, and we said, do you feel anything? And she's like, no, I don't feel anything. I feel like it's just a room. I felt like it was a room. She felt like it was a room. I cried. I was like, oh my God, I think I freaking helped this thing transition. And that was the end of it. There was no more ghost in that building. The building had been known to be haunted for like a decade or something. And that was the end of it. I've contacted them since, and there's no ghost there. So I cried this, and there's in the Reddit, I talk about it. There was a whole thing going on with my spine. There was some kind of transference of energy. I don't have the understanding of it. I posted it in the mediums page on Reddit, and some people gave me some understanding about what occurred there. It seemed to be, I just don't understand it fully what happened, but it was an energy transference, and I took on its emotions as a medium, I guess. I cried for it, and by doing so, I released the energy of its emotions and then allowed it to move on. I think that's what happens. And it knew that, though. What's weird is that it knew more than I knew. And that seemed to be it. And then it never came back. So yeah, that's the story.
Well, maybe it just needed to know that someone loved it. Maybe it needed that, right? That feeling that someone cared.
Yeah, something to be said
move on.
about, so you don't know how dense that the basement was. It was like the emotions kept it stuck. That's what it felt like. It felt like this, it was stuck because it had been so caught in its self-pity about death that it was stuck now there, and it couldn't get out because of it, actually. And it was stuck in the basement and was stuck there. And there was depression was part of the feeling. Like there was all this horrible feelings were tied to it. And then the crying for it felt like I was crying its emotions. Like there was some kind of interconnecting piece to it, and part of mediumship is I didn't know that actually until I read about it, that mediumship is to, like, you express the emotion so it can move on, because what it's done is it put itself in a middle transition, so it's stuck with human dense emotions that it can't get rid of because it needs to move on. So then it gets stuck with those emotions. So then a medium, when a body expresses them, then it can release them so the entity can move on now. That's what I learned as I was going through the process. I didn't even know, right? I had no knowledge of this stuff. And that's what it felt like it happened. I expressed the emotions of it so it could now move on. And yeah, that was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Jeff.
That's so interesting, Jeff. Thank you for telling the story.
Yeah, you got it. No problem. No problem. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Ian, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to check out now. It's nearly 4 a.m. in the
4 a.m.
UK. So
Ian, man. Thank you, Ian.
that's okay.
Thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate it. It was so great.
Thanks for having me. It's been great to connect with you all again. So take care, and I'll catch up with you again soon sometime. And Mimi,
Get some sleep, Ian. Thanks for staying up.
Yeah, thanks for staying up, man. Thanks for just doing the entire presentation right into the early morning hours, man.
Oh, it was
so awesome. Thank you, buddy.
It was very good. Very good.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Okay. Bye,
Take care,
everyone.
Ian.
Good night.
See you, man. Good night. It's awesome. Brian, yeah, you have your hand up again, man.
Yeah, I want to comment there. There are Buddhist chants to ask ghosts to leave. I've done that for clients years ago. I've done that for some people. But it sounds like definitely that's what you did. I wonder if the wheelchair meant someone was dying a slow death and maybe they committed suicide there or something. But they could have been there a century or 50 or 60 or 70 years.
I know. Just stuck. I know.
Just
totally.
stuck.
Yeah, just stuck. And also, I don't know. I've heard of like objects can be haunted and then you can bring them in. So I didn't know the whole, like, I don't know the story. I don't know if it was tied to the location or it was tied to the wheelchair. And like, maybe someone brought the wheelchair from the hospital and turned out it was haunted. And then like, I don't know, man. I really don't know the deal.
Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get the connection. It never was clear to me. And yeah, I don't know.
It looks like you helped them move on. That's a good story. I know in Thai culture, they're very scared of ghosts. They would just run away from that. They would avoid a situation like that. Right. But it seems like you helped them transition. So they could have been there for decades. So you probably really helped them out. So that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, decades. Yeah, that's what it. That's the insanity of it. Actually, she communicated a little bit, and I was convinced that, see, she seemed to me to be someone from the early 1900s. Like, she was old by the time it was early 19, or maybe like 30s or 40s. So she was old by that period. So she'd grown up in the, like, you know, the cusp of the late 1800s going into the night, or yeah, I guess she would have been young at the late 1800s. Something traumatic happened to her, and she was like, you know, like, you kind of like, I don't want to like be judgmental, but you know, like sometimes people are uneducated, and then they're kind of like, they get stuck in a kind of a personality like kind of defect, like they're kind of weirdo, like they're weird. So she didn't even have, the image here was that she didn't even have anybody. Like, she was alone by her old age, and though she might have had an abusive husband or something, I can't figure it out, but she said to me that something happened to her when she was traumatic, when she was a young kid, and it was kind of she got stuck. That was like, she got stuck in a personality or psychological development, and she never got out of it. And then by the time she was old and she had these issues or had a problem, she was like really self-deprecating, and then she kind of, but she really just looked at this young childhood thing and said, that's what kind of happened to me. And she explained that to me, but she didn't explain exactly what the event was that made her die in that area. So yeah, I don't, it's crazy. It's weird stuff. And yeah.
You picked up so much, like you're really psychic yourself. That's really impressive that you picked up on all that, you know?
Yeah, well, I never was able to confirm it. You have no idea. I actually know an archivist for my company, and we've been trying to scour what possibly the building could have been before we bought it. The company bought it, and we bought it in 1962. And we're just, I'm like, I was trying to figure it out, and I couldn't figure out the family name. Like, they actually, Burnaby, there's actually a lot of archives, and Burnaby, like, I found out the name of the family across the street, but not that specific spot. We were so hunting for it, and I was trying to confirm anything if I could, you know, if an old lady lived there or anything like that, or what those burners were for. Why were there incinerators in the basement? I didn't know that either. So yeah.
Well, I want to ask also, you mentioned during your talk, the video you did on when will humans gain the conscious abilities of gray aliens. I've listened to your part 2 of that over and over again, the first 7 minutes. It's really had a powerful effect on me. The idea you're saying how grays project themselves into our human world as human beings, how we can project ourselves onto their craft in their form. So I really took that to heart. And on December 29th, I was talking to a channeler in the States, and she channeled this entity who led me up into like a mothership craft with this whole visualization, doing that. So this has been a practice of mine. Just wonder if you could talk more, or wanted to talk more about that. I know it's kind of off topic, but if you want to talk about it another time, but it's having a big effect all through January. And I've been doing this practice of sort of going into a craft. The way that you would describe it, Susie Hansen described various areas of the craft, and the mantids and the grays, and even the guys who wear the white, the blue suits, like the blue overalls.
Right.
The guy, Susie, I don't know if you've seen those, Susie. Yeah, the human beings. Susie described one actually, even how he aged over a couple of decades. They're human beings, and they have the blue overalls, and they're telepathic.
Right. So what are you asking? What's the question?
Well, I've been doing this kind of visualization practice of bilocating, kind of imagining. Is it very similar to Tibetan Buddhist deity visualization practice? You probably know from Hinduism. Like, I was initiated in 1994 in Cheval International's deity visualization practice, kind of standard Tibetan Buddhist deity visualization. It's very similar practice of bilocation. Like, this is done for many, many centuries in Tibetan Buddhism. So I was in this, I'm doing the same kind of practice, but imagining myself in this particular room with a mantid there, and your elder, in fact. So I've been doing, and after weeks, you would come up, you would be sitting across the table with me, or you'd be there. I thought, is this Jeff's higher self? So I'm getting in and around various areas of the craft, and I have my own particular room where I go there. And so this has been taken on a power of its own. And even in Ray Hernandez's book, The Mind of God, they describe this practice where you're using imagination, but like in Tibetan Buddhism, it has an element of invocation to it. It's not like you're just imagining, but it has some invocation quality. Even Ray Hernandez describes this in, Conscious Contact Research Institute, how imagining, and you talk about visioning. So I'm really getting into this. If you just want to talk more about that, because it's become part of my spiritual practice now.
Right.
And it started with that one talk you gave, you know, and you talk about it briefly, then you go on to other things. But
Right.
so
right.
you've experienced this yourself. You said you've been at the kind of the receiving end of experiencing other people doing this too, right?
Yes. I've been the receiving end of someone who was somewhere else, and then he manifested for me, and it was a very it was a very the frequency changed. That's all I can frame it as. The frequency changed, and no one else seemed to notice them. But between me and him, he was later like, ha, did you notice I was there? And I was like, what? And I definitely, we interacted with each other, but no one else saw him. It was really weird. And it was in an airport, actually. It's funny enough. So I mean, I don't know what else to comment on. Like, of course, that's all very real. The only one thing I would maybe mention is like, it's less about my higher self and maybe more about your higher self. So, you know, these things are transcendental mirrors, right? You can't contain your higher self. So then you project it outwards as other entities, or as other beings. So, you know, if something gives you wisdom, it's less to do with that other entity and more to do with yourself, right? And the bottom line is our minds can't contain the higher self. And so to contain it, we project it outwards as an entity that we're interacting with. That's all I can really say. I mean, that's cool you're having these experiences, man. I think that's really fascinating. And I personally don't do a lot of that stuff. I don't project out. I only do kind of what I need to do. And if I've ever needed to project it out, I do project out, but I don't even project out. I guess it's more remote viewing, as I mentioned, the degrees in that presentation. And I definitely like, I guess it's remote viewing. I don't even like the word remote viewing, but I just check out things. There's no space, and I just check something out, and I definitely do that. And I've done that quite a bit, and check something out. Oh, how's that thing doing? Or how's my wife doing who's not calling me? And I check things out. Yeah. But I only do it out of like urgency or out of necessity. I don't really, my spiritual practice has me kind of focusing inwards, and I focus on God consciousness and unity, and I don't really project outwards, and mainly because I can understand why you would do that because of the alien content. I have the elder directly, and she shows up as orbs in my life and stuff, so I don't feel the need to do those kind of things, but I can understand at least that you would have that compulsion. But yeah, but
I
I would
learned
be
more of the higher self idea from you, that idea of the higher self, how we're sort of smaller versions of that. I know it, even like Jane Roberts, who did Seth and sold like 8 million books.
Yeah,
She
right.
wondered herself, is this just a figment of my own imagination or a projection I'm making myself? So it's all very uncertain. It's maybe a bit of both or neither or both kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the mystery you'll always go with. Even me, right? Like I'm having paranormal activity. This is what I tried to describe today. Like, what's going on here? I'm having the same type of paranormal activity in different environment. No, I'm having different types of paranormal activity but for me, it's the same entity. And so what's really going on? And is it just a blurring of all of it? And, you know, there's something to be said that we're dealing with unity here. So, and I've actually even asked the question, like, am I dealing with my guru, or am I dealing with an elder, or am I dealing with my higher self? Like, I even get confused, but in the end, you're not supposed to. I would even recommend it's like to not get analytical about it. I think the human brain is the one that's saying, no. When I worship you, that's this. When I worship that, that's this. And when I worship this, that's this. So when I think about that, that's this. But, you know, like, it's not that cut and dry, and it's not. And I know
I
that,
agree with what you're saying.
yeah, and you might be thinking that you're because it's making you feel one way, but you could be experiencing the two aspects of the higher self. One that is the gray alien elder, while the other that is your Buddhist teacher. Yet you're experiencing the same aspect of your own higher self is really what's going on. And because your higher self, the higher self is multifaceted. It's not going to be a single feeling in your life. It's going to be a multifaceted experience. And I really think this is the realm of remember I mentioned earlier about the paranormal, like letting loose of the belief system. It's not of the mind, man. So that's the bottom line. When you get categorical and you get analytical, you're ruining the
Yeah.
experience. You have to
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
let it, you have to let it be in the realm of the, I don't care who it is. I know how I feel, and I know, I know what information I'm getting. That, and the bottom line, is it benefiting your life? Is it helping your life?
Yeah.
Does it make you happy? Does it give you joy? Like don't hold me responsible if you get some kind of information, right?
No.
Because I would tell you that that's probably your higher self. But the bottom line is, yeah, like, don't don't be analytical about it. And if it helps you,
Yeah.
it gives you information, makes you feel good, that benefits your life, then that's, just don't get analytical about it, because
What I like though,
Yeah.
the ETs are more real to me. Like there's this Theravada Deva Saka, which Theravada Buddhist, he's an important Deva to me, but the mantas, they're more physically real to me. Like I believe these are real. There are these motherships, like small city-sized things, like Susan Hansen describes and you described. And the grays are real, and the ancient grays and the mantas, to me, they're more definitely real to me than I believe these Theravada and Devas as well. They're real, but the mantas and grays, they're more real to me because there's so many witnesses. It's today, right? It's not 2,500 years ago.
Right.
So that's more real to me. That's why this particular practice, I'm taking the same Buddhist practice I've been initiated back in 1994 in Thailand. And for this, but like you say, I'm not being too analytical. It doesn't matter so much whether it's this particular mantid or the elder or the ancient gray or whatever.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. Think of it all as the transcendental mirror. You're reflecting everything out. It's all you're doing, right? Even me, man, even the very conversation we're having now is a reflection for yourself of something that's going on within inside of you. Humans are just constant projection machines is what we are. And so these are transcendental mirrors. And the bottom line is just positivity, love. Does it benefit you? Does it give you wisdom? If it does, then use that image. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been very helpful. Great
Awesome.
talk.
Awesome, Brian.
I just wanted to say to you guys that, well, especially to you, Jeff, now you're discovering all this stuff that's happening, and it happens to me as well. It's because they're spiritual gifts. As you go along in your spiritual development, you do get these gifts. Right. And, in yoga, in yogic traditions, they've always said, don't get stuck in the spiritual gifts, because then you let your ego, then it's your ego doing that, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to almost ignore them and say, thank you, I can bilocate, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? Astral travel, or like in the case where you help the ghost. Right. But it's good for us not to get stuck in that, because those are the spiritual gifts, and they accumulate.
Yeah, you bang on. Bang on. Yeah. I think of it as. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna have to say goodbye.
Yeah, I know. What is this? 7 hours now or something?
Yeah. Go ahead and finish your thought that you were saying.
Oh no, I'm actually going to do the next presentation, which will be considerably shorter, by the way. It's my whole thing, and I'll always come back to it, and it's the thing nobody wants to hear. I think it's about finding God, or whatever your source is, or whatever your core consciousness is. And then these are all labels, all this other stuff, remote viewing and projection and telepathy. And really, it's actually, I don't even like using, if you notice, I don't really use these words too often, right? I don't use those. I talk about consciousness, expanded consciousness, but then because the problem is too, you can become ungrounded about these things if you aren't finding your own core in your center. And so that's what I just focus on. And then I use them if I need them, but I'm not relying on them as a form of, as you say, Nimi, like as a form of anything. So you're bang on about that. Bang on. That's awesome.
I've been ungrounded before. I was hospitalized in my 20s. I was still ungrounded I've been ungrounded and hospitalized for it. I definitely understand that. Yeah,
and this field, it's shocking to me. This field, how many ungrounded people are in it? Actually, we have to protect ourselves, right? It's
as far as grounding, Brian, a really, really great thing to do is to take your shoes off and go outside.
Get your feet touching the ground, eh?
Get your feet touching
the snow right now. Give me a few months.
A little bit of Tai Chi or something, right?
Yeah,
Take a little walk.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we do need to ground.
Yeah.
We do. I was very ungrounded in my early 20s and late teens. You know, and I was telling the story the other day that I didn't really come into my body until I had my first son,
Right.
because I was out there somewhere, untethered,
Mm.
you know, a lot of spiritual gifts, but just really not on the ground at all.
Yeah.
So we have to have both.
Yeah.
I love you all.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good to see
And
you,
it was
Mimi.
nice to see you, Brian.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Take
I'm
care, Mimi.
there.
Thanks for
Okay,
being
bye,
here.
everybody.
Bye.
Yeah. Blessings.
Yeah. But yeah, who shall not be named. But yeah, some like just ungrounded, but yet having amazing abilities. Very
Yeah.
psychic, but not grounded, and very ungrounded actually.
And that's
And
quite
it's,
common in our society, right?
yeah, well, that's I come back to the God thing. If you don't know who you are and you don't know what you are, then you can have these abilities, but they're not healthy. I don't think it's healthy at all. I've never witnessed any healthy behavior about having any of these abilities while not being connected to the God self. And I call it God, but core consciousness self, the higher self, whatever people want to call it, right? But yeah.
I like what you say about keeping it simple and using your own words, not describing yourself as a leader or this or that. You're just keeping it inside. So it's just me, Jeff. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. It's not a big deal. It's just what I'm going through. If you guys want to listen, I'll tell you. All I've got for you is what's inside me. I don't want to be titled as this or titled as that. I'm no big deal. Just listen to me. And if you get anything out of it, through kindness, maybe you can share with others too. Write that one down, buddy.
Love it, Barry. Love it, man. Thanks, buddy.
Ukulele.
Is that you with the ukulele? Who's got the ukulele?
Yeah, I have my sound off, but I'm just sort of strumming at the same. Did you get my poem yesterday?
I did. Yesterday,
Okay.
today? Yeah, yesterday, today. Yeah, I did, man. Thank you. Yeah. That was cool. That was great.
I didn't send it. I just left it there. I forgot to send it until this
No,
morning.
you did. It's called So Too or something, or So Too. Yeah, you
I
have
like
to. Yeah, so
I
soon
like
too there. Is it soon too there? Soon too there.
Yeah, which is a little bit incongruous. It doesn't make sense, but
I
if you
liked it.
read the thing, it does. But I really like the one line where, and it says, I forget, talks about where you become yourself, where you are I.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
I mean, you went to places where I'd never been. I mean, it's for you to figure all this out over these last couple of years, and it looks like you really got a pretty good handle on it. I'm not trying to suck up to you, but you did pretty good from what I can tell. For you to be able
Still
to
going
do
though,
that,
Barry. Still going, man. It's not perfect. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
good. For you to be able to go after that and make sense of all that, that's a big accomplishment because you had to change you. I mean, it had to happen. You had to become not necessarily a different person, but a more understanding and knowledgeable person. And that's where you came from. I'm not trying to suck up, but I think you did real well so far. Good job,
man.
buddy.
Thanks, man.
No problem.
I always appreciate your observation like that, Barry. It is a pain in the ass. What happened? It's a pain in the ass and a gift, as Mimi would say, but also like, it changed my world upside down. Yeah.
The road's a real pain in the ass, but it's just getting there. And you're never going to be
the view is nice.
Yeah. None of us are ever going to be there. But there's so many questions, and what I like about what you bring is you bring those questions and put them on the table. Nice. Well, holy shit, this is what he's talking about. My God.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Good.
Love it, man. Thank you, buddy.
Anyway,
thank you.
No, Jeff, our third anniversary is in 11 days, We met you March 15th on the Ides of March, 2020 at Waves Coffee 3 years ago. You've had enormous impact on my life the last 3 years, Jeff. You're like you and Susie Hansen, but all through you. I met Susie. You had a huge impact on my life and my whole direction with everything I'm doing.
Wow, man.
So thank you. Big thank you. Holy smokes. You never know how you affect other people when you're out there making videos and talking.
Yeah.
It's just good old. Just good old buddy. Hey, Ralph, you want to say hi for the record? Hey, bud.
He's sleeping.
I think so.
He puts the camera. He puts the thing over the top of the camera.
Oh, he's here. No, he's unmuted.
Oh, there he's unmuted.
Ralph.
Yeah.
He's been here
for
5 hours now, Jeff. 5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a marathoner like the
All right,
rest
that
of
was
us.
crazy,
Okay,
crazy.
fine.
Ian was a part of it with it. Hey, Ralph, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm still awake. Yep. Very interesting
Yeah,
talks and yeah,
yeah, it's good
I
to see you.
concur with many of the things you were saying.
Nice, nice.
That similar
Feels a little
experiences.
Feels a little bit like old home week. The four of us.
Old, yeah, it feels like old times.
Old
Do
Yeller.
it, yeah. Doing
Old
this for
Yeller.
a while, which is nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
nice
really
to
good.
feel.
Too bad Ian couldn't stick
Uh,
around. Actually, it was so
we're-
great having him, man. That was great.
Yeah, it's
Well,
great. It's always great when Ian graces the videos. He's
Yeah.
really special. He's one of
Yeah.
a kind.
Yeah, one of
He's
a kind.
knowledgeable. He's seen a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as experience goes.
Yeah,
He's
But
also a
he's not
classy English gentleman. Very classy, very
Classy.
polite
Yeah,
guy.
you got it. I called him
Classy
sexy at
guy.
one point. Sexy English. Yeah.
You know what I like about Ian is he's not an experiencer, but he deals with experiencers.
Yeah.
And you can be just as contributory, if that's a word, into this kind of genre or subject as people who have actually gone out and had to go through the experience thing. You can learn a lot on both sides of the page. It's really good.
Ian,
Like,
yeah, you got it. My favorite part about Ian, well, the declaration about how amazing Ian is I went to this experiencer like therapy group. It was like experiencers, like so we can all talk with each other. And
right.
it just seems so like in the middle of, I mean, it's on the internet, obviously, so it wasn't in the middle of nowhere, but it seemed so remote and removed, and Ian was there. And the guy is so diehard. He's out in the nooks and crannies. He's the only one. He's the only one who saw me, and he went and zeroed in. He sees an experiencer on our thing. He zeroes in. Oh, who's this guy? I need to know this guy personally. And he goes and talks with you. And oh man, no one. Look at them. Look at them all. And they're not as diehard as Ian is. And you're right. Ian's not an experiencer. He's just been a part of it, and he's also grounded. He's
6 years old. He got that book. Remember? He's been doing this all his life. He's always been interested in this.
Who?
And the thing about it, he doesn't quit. Ian.
Oh yeah.
Remember
Okay.
he had the story.
What did you say about the six? What'd you just say about the what?
I think his
Yeah,
mother
it's-
gave him a UFO book. I think when he was
Oh.
7. He just mentioned it
He was
tonight.
5 or 6
Oh
years old.
yeah.
His mother doesn't even remember it. Yeah, totally changed the direction of his
Well,
life.
it's because that Duncan story, right? When I sent him the files, the PowerPoint a couple like last week or whatever, and he got so excited he gravitated right towards that. The Duncan, the woman, the nurse seeing the UFO outside the hospital. He said, "Oh, that was in the book I was reading as a kid." He was like, the first thing he was like really excited for him. Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah. Yeah, he was. That's what I said. He was bit by the mystery bug, like I was when I was a kid. Yeah, so we were all bit by the mystery bug. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it hasn't turned anything as far as significant experience for Ian, but he still gets an awful lot out of it.
Well,
I mean,
no,
we need
Ian's witnessed things. Ian's he hasn't experienced. He hasn't been on craft, but he's seen
I didn't-
orbs. He's seen things. Yeah, he's
He's
had his own
been
share of
with
stuff.
experiencers and saw things.
Yeah, he's
But
been
like I
with
said, he's
people.
real diehard. He's really there for people. He really talks to people. Really supposed like who's
Yeah.
got the time, Alec? How does
Yeah.
he find the time? Like, he's
Ben-
really dedicated.
I thought he said with Vanessa he saw
Yeah,
a UFO.
Vanessa,
he
that's
saw
That's what I was
orbs.
going to mention.
Yeah,
I'm glad he brought her up because, in my opinion, Vanessa's like you. She was a very significant influence on me.
Hmm.
I really believe in what she was going through, and she was so offhanded. Like, she's and it's so nice to see somebody who is not self-effacient so much, but not out to gain
Right.
with the knowledge or be somebody.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be anybody. She's going to put up with an awful lot. Same with you. If all this wasn't here, you wouldn't have the spice in your life, but you wouldn't have the headaches either.
right.
So thank goodness that you guys are handling it well, yeah, without
Yeah.
a lot of ego.
Right.
That's really takes something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the point. I think the whole life. To go into it a little bit, that's the timeline thing. The guru is all about, Brian, you could understand this. The guru is all about removing your ego. And you're right, I couldn't have the experience they gave me with having an ego. You can't do it, man. This stuff is too extreme. But you have to have the whole practice of having a guru is to learn how to remove your ego. And the memories came out at the time when I was like really, my ego had been beaten down. And so let's put it that way. And so the memories coming out, I was able to handle them. Yeah, I was able to handle the memories and not feel like I was special because of it. And you can't even feel special because half the people don't believe you anyway. So they don't want to believe you. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's all part of it. Well, that's what the poem said
Yeah.
too. Because
Yeah.
it said you still have to hold on to things, right? You still have to keep it together. You
Yeah.
might be able, you might get out there and experience these things.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, guys. Thanks,
Anyway.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks
Good.
for all being
Next
here,
time.
guys. Take care.
Let's do it again
Bye
soon.
now.
You got it. Let's do it again soon.